at least in our agency, an inside joke how bad ThemeForest code quality is. The standardization of content of the web in Markdown, that is something I don't think Matt would enjoy. We were DDoSing ourselves every time we opened the blog editor.
Hello everyone, my name is Maciej Nowak and welcome to the Awesome to Know podcast where we discuss all things related to great websites. Today we are diving into the evolution of WordPress with our guest Hendrik Luehrsen, a veteran WordPress developer and a CEO of Luehrsen-Heinrich web development agency. Hendrik has been part of WordPress ecosystem since 2006 and brings valuable insights from his years of experience. In this episode, we will explore how WordPress has transformed over the years, the rise and fall of WordPress themes, and new technologies like how AI are reshaping the entire ecosystem. Hendrik will share his honest perspective on full-site editing, Gutenberg, and why his agency has made strategic shifts in how they approach WordPress development. Whether you are a development agency owner or just curious about WordPress, this conversation offers a candid look at where WordPress has been and where is it heading. If you don't want to miss new episodes and keep learning more about WordPress, please subscribe to our newsletter at awesomestudio.com/newsletter. This is osomstudio.com/newsletter. Or if you are watching this on YouTube, please give us a thumb and subscribe to our channel. This means a lot to us. Without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Hendrik Luehrsen.
Hey everyone, it's good to have you here. We're glad you decided to tune in for this episode of the Awesome to Know podcast.
Hi Hendrik, how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
That's great to have you here today. And maybe just like for starters, can you introduce yourself to our listeners maybe?
Sure. My name is Hendrik. I'm from Munich, Germany. I'm the CEO of a small advertising agency. And we had the fortune of jumping onto the WordPress bandwagon very early on, which kind of led to me being in the community for a long time now. And I'm always there and always have an opinion on everything. But well, here I am.
Very good. That's why you're here. That's why you're here. So would you say you are an early adopter?
Yes. So I started my first WordPress blog back in 2006 for my own personal site. I was just moving to Munich from my hometown, close to Bremen. And I wanted to blog a bit, and I first used like a niche blogging tool called Serendipity, because I already knew PHP, so I wanted a PHP system, and Serendipity was not very good. So I jumped on board with WordPress, and that was probably my first contact with WordPress.
All right. Yeah. So how did it start in terms of like? I'm curious now because we jumped the bandwagon a little bit later when it was already the train was rolling, and I'm curious how back in the days, how did it differ from what we have now?
From the term of contexts, if you look back at 2017, not that much. The first big evolution I vividly remember was the introduction of the menu. Meaning the patch where you could control the menu different or separate from the structure of your pages, which was like the advent of true proper content management, where you could on one hand write content, organize content, on the other hand organize your menu structure. And that was in the beginning something big. But if you're so close to the thing, the evolution feels very natural. But I believe if you would jump back into a WordPress system from even 2016 or 2006, they would feel very different. It's like watching your
Yeah, it's
kids
like,
grow up. You don't really see, yeah,
and then
yeah,
they are
exactly.
18.
You don't really see a difference day by day, but suddenly they're grown up.
Exactly. Yeah. So now I like you are providing me too many like options to continue this conversation. Like, is WordPress grown up? Is it a grown up? I certainly is. Came of age, as they say. But is it a grown up technology?
It is over 20 years old now. And whenever a technology can not only have a foothold for over 20 years, but dominate the space for such a long time, I would say it's appropriate to call it grown up. Additionally to the fact that there is a boatload of people earning proper money with WordPress and in the WordPress ecosystem, thankfully me included. So yes, WordPress is very grown up.
Now, if you continue growing up, you start to get,
Oh yes.
elderly, and with all of the big technologies, there is that moment in time on the evolution of the technology when you start to joke about the technology that it looks like this piece of software looks like the piece of software that is for 40, 30, 20 years on the market, and this is no longer a grown-up technology. It's the dinosaur technology, right? And with this, would you say we are approaching being in the elderly space, or still very fit and in shape WordPress athlete, let's
This
say?
is a question where I have to give my agency CEO answer. It depends. It depends on where you look at. We certainly have parts in the WordPress system that are ages old. I mean, one of the first big functions Matt wrote back in 2003 are the actions and filter system, the hooks that enabled so much growth, that pretty much enabled the plugin ecosystem and the theme ecosystem. And much of the code that you see there is probably over a decade old, that hasn't been touched in over a decade. But that in itself is not a problem because the ecosystem around WordPress and within WordPress is evolving very quick. We have so many awesome contributors that spend time on things that are not very shiny, PHP compatibility. The new blog editor is certainly, or full site editing is certainly a big progress in terms of staying up to date. And well, that's my it depends answer. Depends on where you look.
How about the incumbents? How about the new technologies that, how to put it, like maybe they are like chipping away part of the market. The market is huge. The market share for WordPress is huge, but like there are companies like for certain groups like Wix or Squarespace or Webflow, for example, which are growing so fast. They are growing for a reason. They are growing so fast. Obviously, it doesn't hurt WordPress yet. If you look at the big numbers, but there is a reason for their like absurd growth, especially for Webflow, for example. But there are also many other more niche technologies. So like the pie is getting bigger and they are growing because the pie is getting bigger, or maybe there is some migration of customers. What's your take?
Certainly both. The pie of people publishing content on the internet is certainly bigger, and WordPress has not been able to capitalize on a lot of these trends, especially if you look at video content. Like look at how big TikTok is, for example. It's humongously large. The amount of creators on there, or Instagram, image content, serialized image content. WordPress hasn't been able to capitalize on that, not because of lack of trying. I mean, Google had like a format back in 2012 2021, 2022 called Web Stories, I think. Pascal Birchler worked on that, and we had a working prototype for that. But that sadly never took off, like creating TikTok or Instagram stories right in your WordPress and being able to have them shown nicely on Google. It was a nice experiment. Never went anywhere, sadly. But that doesn't mean that those creators would have come to WordPress if TikTok didn't exist. So the question is, albeit WordPress not being able to capitalize on that, is that the loss for WordPress? And I would say no. You would say maybe Wix or Squarespace or Webflow are fishing in the same space, and I would answer to that, or I say to that, yes, to a certain degree, because Wix and Squarespace and also Webflow offer certain things that are very hard in WordPress right at the moment. At this moment, it's the time to published content from nothing to published content in WordPress is fairly long. It's a fairly long, complicated process, and having to navigate that alone is certainly easier in one of these platforms. But if you are up and scaling and suddenly have to worry about things like accessibility, search engine optimization, performance, traffic scale, these closed or data protection, GDPR, these closed source platforms suddenly give you limitations you do not have with WordPress. So for every problem, there's a proper tool. And at least for now, most problems can be solved by WordPress fairly well.
That's interesting what you said about TikTok, because it's like totally different story where the main benefit of TikTok is that it's like video only. It's all glued together by the legendary algorithm that propose you the proper content that will that you want to consume. And I really can't see that transition or anything similar to what you explained regarding the video format, like tapping into video craze, let's say, with WordPress, because like by definition this is not so far not a tool for any kind of like video editing. It's like different continents, like I totally don't get it.
So I would let's stick with the TikTok video idea for a bit. I would challenge you to abstract the concept of TikTok one level further. Do not think about video. I think the appeal of TikTok and Vine beforehand was the speed from I have an idea in my head and that idea is published on the internet. That speed is incredibly quick in on TikTok and on Vine, on Instagram and in Facebook stories. That idea to published content, that time is so quick, because in a picture, in a single picture, you only can transport so much information in an entertaining way. Video adds a whole new dimension. So video can allow you to transport more information than you can in a picture. So that is in my mind, the appeal of that. If we could somehow find a way where within WordPress we can have an idea and publish content within minutes, like entertainment, highly polished, beautifully designed content within minutes, I think that would allow for another wave of growth. And I think AI can enable that.
Yeah, I for sure will ask about this AI part. But I think for TikTok and any other platform, the difference is huge. I can't agree with you on this, because there are a couple of elements like likes that are what people want, Like they want the validation, there's that dopamine hit likes. Then there's discoverability where the algorithm pushes the content. So you are not looking for new content. All of the content is there within your one window versus on WordPress. It's like, you would be on a dominion of one creator, one URL. Yeah, another creator, another. Like it would require like something like a federation of websites to start to look like something very remotely similar to those closed platforms, and the native tools where you can record with your mobile application. So like I think that maybe that would be easier if you have something easy, like faster from idea to creation. But all of those missing components are like separating your content from the rest of the world, in my
That's
opinion.
certainly true. It's certainly a problem because discoverability is a huge thing. The TikTok algorithm is very good in serving me exactly the right video to keep me engaged, and we don't have that in the traditional web. We don't have that in traditional publishing. The Feediverse has the concept to allow that. I know that Automatic is actively working on integrating the Feediverse tighter into WordPress. And I think, at least theoretically, replicating a TikTok-esque discoverability with WordPress generated content is possible, but that would require an amount of work, focused work in one direction that is simply not available for an open source project. That's the sad thing. By design, what we do is design by committee, and being fast with a project this size is very hard. I really do not want to trade places with Matt, because Matt has the job of steering this huge behemoth of a ship that the WordPress project is, and it's not easy. Certainly isn't.
I reached out to record this conversation because this started around the topic of themes. And back in the day, themes were super popular. Now, not so much. Like I don't hear so many clients like even mentioning the word theme. It's like no longer a word in the vocabulary, in the dictionary of client language. And I'm curious about your opinion on it. Like what has changed that this is no longer a theme is not a thing anymore?
That is certainly a case in a big area of the WordPress ecosystems. Themes have certainly taken a step back from the limelight since 2017, I would say. Before that, I mean, let's go back to 2006. How I found the theme of my blog. I went through the WordPress theme repository, and I probably found I'm a bit interpolating here because I don't really remember. But I think I found a few quirky themes that probably had a lot of character and probably were in one or the other way broken, but did what I want them to do and had like purpose and character. And I wanted a blogging theme and not a photography theme. Um, and I did not want to spend a lot of time on it. So there was that. And there are places on the internet where that is still true. I mean, look at Envato, like ThemeForest. ThemeForest is still earning a lot of money. There are still some successful theme vendors on there selling WordPress themes for like architects, photographers, whatever. Um, and if you look at what Squarespace is doing or what Wix is doing, they offer purpose-built utility-first themes, or they call it templates, for specific needs. me if I would be an architect that just came out of university and is now a freelance architect, I don't need full site editing. I need a theme for architects where I spend like an afternoon hacking my own text in there and be done with it. And that's something full site editing is severely lacking, and the other members of the WordPress editor ecosystem are not doing very good. The closest competitor to like Wix and Squarespace that does this halfway decent is Elementor. They offer like also purpose-built themes for whatever need, doctors, for the sports club, the regional sports club. You can find that there, but it is fairly hidden. And I think that's where a lot of value was lost because, as I said, the time from idea to published content is very long. And choosing a theme or a template or how your website looks, whatever you want to call that, is currently in core WordPress way too long, which leads to one of two effects. The first effect is all pages suddenly seem to look alike because everyone is using the default theme with some minor tweaks, or they're using Squarespace or Wix or Webflow.
But don't you think that maybe the reason the themes were abandoned is because they came with a lot of problems, like sustainability of the theme, a lot of like plugins that were required by the theme, and so on. And at the end of the day, you would break the theme if you are that person that would if you don't have certain knowledge about what you are doing, like with everything, you would like at some point break the website. Then error 500 you wouldn't have any website because of that error, because of something you did.
At least in our agency, an inside joke how bad ThemeForest code quality is. I mean, like if we, it happens rarely these days. If we get a client website that is based upon a ThemeForest theme, one of our first demands is to switch out the theme to either something purpose-built or something more standard like Elementor or something. So that was a problem we had like in 2019, 2020, just before the big advent of full site editing, where in this theme space, you only had a chance of success if you had like a gazillion of features, because we arrived at a state of the theme market where you could not sell with style alone. You had to bring some tangible upside with your theme through like sliders, customizable, whatever, the customizer, own templating system, or whatever. And it was a mess. I mean, vendor lock-in, being locked into like Visual Composer or Divi is a problem that many people had. So the intent of what full site editing and the Gutenberg project try to solve is certainly valid. It was a mess back in the day, and I mean, it certainly led to the loss of quirkiness in the WordPress ecosystem. I mean, I remember we tried our luck in the public WordPress theme ecosystem in 2019, and we published very unsuccessfully an own public free WordPress theme. And it was hard. Building that thing was hard. Getting that thing through WordPress theme review was even harder. They are relentless with their rules. And seeing the state of the WordPress theme repo back in 2019 really broke my heart. It was really a bad sight because it was gamed left and right. to the cost of discoverability for proper good themes. And if you're a new user coming in, seeing the onslaught of bad themes, of course you're disheartened by what you see.
But how is it? How is it gamed?
For example, a usual strategy to get a theme into like the popular area of themes is to let the theme have a lot of child themes. So a theme author wanting to game the WordPress theme repository would publish a fairly decent but bland core WordPress theme, like put it out there, and then they would start uploading child themes that did minuscule, like minimal changes, change the primary color, change the font, a sans serif font with red, a serif font with blue, so that one core theme had like 30, 40 child themes, and child themes had their own review queue. So not only took it way longer to publish a new core theme, you would also, as a competitor, see all those child themes going past you and like helping the original theme author getting attention and like broadening their visibility in some what I would consider unethical ways, but it was within the rules of the WordPress theme repo. So and it certainly did not help the users.
Yes, and if the review was so relentless, why there were so many bad themes?
Because while the theme review was relentless, once you knew the rules, you had your ways to circumvent them. So basically, themes were only checked on the first submission, I believe, and all subsequent submissions were mostly just checked by the automated tests that back then were not very good, and rarely did, or very little time was spent on subsequent reviews. So you could do a lot of shenanigans once your core theme was submitted.
Okay, so release a pilot and then do the actual upgrade with cutting corners and extended functionalities and child themes. Okay,
and we have to. It certainly flipped on its head. Being an ugly theme, not being pretty, not being a good theme was not a reason to be denied from WordPress theme ecosystem, from the WordPress theme repository. So the theme review team was in no position, and that's nothing they could do to like judge the visual quality of a theme. They had a set standard of rules. They had to check boxes for the theme, and if the theme followed that box, it would go through. And so there was no like gut feeling quality control that this is a good theme or not a good theme, because it is very hard to define like within rules what a good theme means.
Okay. And how about now that we have the time right now when we have Gutenberg and full site editing, aren't there themes that would be full site full site editing compatible, that non-developers could buy and use and launch their websites in no time?
We certainly have a handful of very good themes in the FSE ecosystem. Ollie jumps to mind, but and that is a big but. We have basically scared away a lot of the old theme development companies. Back in 2019, so 6 years ago now, we calculated that building a proper, not multi-purpose, just the standards of a WordPress theme, building a proper theme with good styling, with good design, cost about 25,000 euros with development time in Germany. So we are a little bit higher on the wage side, etc., etc. So $25,000 euros back in 2019. When you invest that amount of money, you need a way to recoup that in some way. ThemeForest and back in 2015, 2014, and pro themes and upsells and all the nasty things we had in terms of banners and pop-ups back in the day, there was a way to do that. Today, with full site editing and how closed the system is and how little upselling is possible, and with no clear path to revenue, that investment of creating a theme is very hard to justify, because we scared away the theme developers with uncertainty of how themes are being developed. Because basically, up until today, we do not have a complete best practice system how to develop themes with full site editing. There are a million ways to solve a million problems, and they are constantly changing. And there is no clear way to revenue. And I do not judge anyone for the decision not to participate in that market, because, well, it's economic insanity to participate in that market.
So what's the way? Is it always custom development or using Elementor? Because, for example, we are doing only custom design, custom development. Like, it was always from the start. Like, this was because we had those bad experience with clients coming with existing themes. It was always a mess. There was a reason they were looking for a change, so we were always doing custom development. Now, discussion with you about the themes is something like, not the themes are not my cup of tea, right? And that's why I want to learn about the ecosystem and what is available now for customers, at least, for example. So I'm curious, what are the options for the clients if you don't want to go with custom design and custom Gutenberg development, for example?
It's hard to give an answer for that, because it very much depends on the position of you as a freelancer or as an agency, and the clients you're on board. I can answer that question from my point of view. For us, we have been doing custom Gutenberg development since 2018. We were very early on board with blocks, and by all criticism I do about the blog editor and how much I tend to vocalize my anger about it, I think it is the best content editor we have. It is a pain to develop for it from time to time. Whenever you see me on certain Slack instances rambling about it, you must certainly think that I hate that by a passion, and that is to some extent true. But I also think it is the best editor we have for content editing. That said, in 2022, things changed a bit. We, through our 10-year agency lifespan, always had the fortunate position that we were able to choose clients who had the budget to do custom development and custom design. So we could always do some pretty amazing things. We always had all the freedoms that code was able to give us. That kind of went away after like the COVID high. There came a COVID low. I think everyone in the industry, to some extent, felt that. We felt that by bigger agencies suddenly pressuring into our market space from above. We were certainly competing with agencies for clients we have never competed with, because usually our budgets are way too low for them to even wake up in the morning. That said, that led us to be bold and jump over our own ego, and take a hard look at Elementor. Elementor, for custom development people like me, for the longest time had a fairly bad reputation. Sites were slow, you were limited in what you were able to do, and it's very easy to make a mess in Elementor. But from a standpoint of 2023 and onwards, they have come a long way. The ability of Elementor to fix issues they have fairly quickly is astonishing, and certainly fueled by their success in the market, and the size of their community. I mean, when I look at our WordPress meetup, I think 80% of the people are Elementor users. So that's a new avenue of how we build sites that opened up in the last 2 years, and we are experimenting with that, and we are getting better with that in the moment. So basically, to explain that in short, for the lower end clients, like for the lower third, we're using Elementor to build out sites and try to do it in a very conscious way in terms of accessibility, performance, and because we know how the system works behind the curtains. We know because we program these systems, not in that extent, to us for ourselves. And for the upper 2/3, we do custom development solely in Gutenberg, but not for full site editing. We completely ignore full site editing for now.
Why?
Because we had the pain of supporting Gutenberg and block sites for the first few years, which meant constant deprecations. We fixed these data. I mean, for the first year, we had to go into some sites every 4 weeks to every release to fix some deprecation or something breaking, or some controls suddenly popping up that was not there before. And that has stabilized since more attention was being put on full site editing. And for me, I do not think that full site editing is in a place right now where we have the amount of documentation and stability, where for a mid-market agency like us, where we could risk the investment going into full site editing, because things are still changing, documentation is not there yet, and the investment is too steep for the results we're getting.
So just for our listeners who are listening to this, so they can visualize the problems you had, like full site editing versus building on Gutenberg and those new controls popping up, right? Like how did manifest itself? Like these problems were like you are supporting the rendering on the editor, right? So that the user could arrange the content in the editor fully visually, right? This is what you are referring to, right?
We had like a thing, I think it was in 2022, where suddenly content widths were changing, just changed, because back in the day, the way content and wide align, especially within group blocks, was calculated, changed. It just changed at some point, leading to all the themes we built beforehand just breaking. Until we, I think it was a fix. It was a fairly simple fix within theme JSON, where we had to opt out of a certain thing. And there are issues on the GitHub repository, the Gutenberg repository, which are like dozens and dozens and dozens comments long about these issues, where suddenly things just break. And that is unacceptable if you are an agency that spends like 3 to 6 months on a project and then has to move on. We need a stable product. And WordPress was always that. It was a stable product. I mean, for example, we 2 years ago redid a site that we did in 2013, meaning we were able to come back to our own site 10 years later. They kept it running for 10 years and it worked. It worked like a charm. It wasn't the best UX in the world anymore. It certainly had its edges, but it did what it was built to do. And we rebuilt that in Gutenberg. And was fairly stable because Gutenberg has come a long way now, or the block editor has come a long way now. But I do not think that you can even go back to an FSE site like 2 years ago and it would look the same now. Just virtually impossible because of the decision that the project is doing for a variety of reasons, being the most options being opt out rather than opt in. So maybe, for example, I can talk about our way how we develop Gutenberg blocks. That might clear things up. In the beginning, we religiously followed the documentation, meaning we learned React, or at least I had to learn React. And we built our blocks back in the day before even patterns existed, by using JavaScript, doing the editing and then the saving to the database. Meaning you had a save function and you basically generated HTML code that you saved to the database. And that was fine until we had like a few instances where we had to update the DOM structure, the HTML structure after that. And the client had the audacity to actually publish content on his website. So we had like, in one instance, 4,000 posts we had to update manually, because if you update the block, if you update the JavaScript, the generated HTML doesn't update itself. You have to write a deprecation, you have to go into the post, you have to hit save, and then it's done. But there's still, to this day, not an automated way to do that. I know that the big agencies, I forgot which one it was, 10up or Human Made, they tried to publish like a method of doing that, but I think it went nowhere. I didn't look at it in the past few years. So then we solved that problem by rather unceremoniously going to advanced custom fields, because advanced custom fields solved the problem in a way we knew. You had to write the PHP code once. The PHP dictated how the site is rendered, and if you had to update your DOM because style changed, whatever, you could do that. And for everything, every content that has ever been published with an ACF block got updated instantly. But the UX was garbage. That was certainly the case. The UX in the back end was suboptimal. We had one case where we had a lot of ACF blocks on a post or a certain landing page. We had like more than 100 blocks, ACF blocks. And back in the day, server-side rendering worked a bit differently, where each server-side rendered block was one ping to the backend server. We were DDoSing ourselves every time we opened the block editor. It was a challenge, and that made us rethink. And I think it was discussions with Brian Kortz where we were talking about how to solve that. And basically, our current method is to write the editor component, like edit.js and everything like that, how it's supposed to be written, but we save null, we save nothing, or just the inner blocks, and we basically take the PHP renderer and render everything in PHP, which has the downside of having to write the block markup twice, once in React and the second time in PHP. but it gives us the flexibility to change everything whenever we want without having to worry about deprecations, without having to worry about existing content in the database. And that is certainly something that lets me sleep very well.
And I don't get it. Why does it solve the deprecations problem?
Because the block editor has introduced something called the block validator or the code validator. Meaning, if you, for example, updated just the edit function, that a certain HTML code is suddenly different, or a class is different, or something like that, that block would suddenly be considered invalid because the rendered instance of the block in the database is different from how the React application or the editor application expects it to be. And that leads to a conflict that is usually resolved through a concept called deprecations.
Or I thought my mental picture was deprecated functions that you shouldn't be using for, because they are
We
too old.
also have that plenty, but we are actually talking about a standing concept within the block editor called block deprecations, where you basically have an old version of a block that is deprecated. Your new version of the block recognizes that old version of the block and gracefully upgrades that. That is a concept within the block editor.
Early in the conversation, we started with you started with that concept of getting, like, let's say, time to market of your content. Getting the content to the audience as fast as possible. Now, there's the very young concept also of vibe coding, and there are certain tools that helps you do that. Even free Grok 3, which tends to be exceptional at code generation. Where is this going to take us? Speaking broadly about the developer community, agency, space, client space. Obviously, everyone can do this, which means everyone can generate a lot of problems, technical debt, and so on. But at the end of the day, you will have something. You'll be like 95% happy within 2 hours. So,
honest answer, I don't know.
Very good answer.
We can only speculate because there are some massive things happening in the broader ecosystem at the moment, and it is still uncertain how that impacts us in the WordPress space. First, we've seen, or we are seeing, solutions already existing in the market, with the projects trying to solve the time to market or time to content thing. Look at InstaWP, what Vikas Singhal has built. I hope I didn't butcher your name, Vikas. What they have built with InstaWP, where you can, I think, go to wp.new and you suddenly own a WordPress website, at least for 2 days. Until you pay. Or I think Elementor has a similar product. And that is something traditional hosting companies cannot solve because they are in a fundamentally different mind space of selling hosting. They do not sell you a place to publish content, but they sell you a place to put your web application. And that is fundamentally a different headspace, and I have not yet seen a single hoster that approach the thing from like an InstaWP angle. That's the first thing of solving time to market. I think if we can get something like InstaWP that is even more refined, or even InstaWP itself, if they refine their process and become more popular, maybe that is what Squarespace is for the WordPress system, just a lower end self-serving solution for WordPress. And once you've grown out of InstaWP, they offer like migrations to GoDaddy, whatever. Yeah. one of the myriad of hosts we have in the ecosystem. The second thing is vibe coding. I think vibe coding works when you have a general understanding of the basic concepts of code, how code works. I mean, there was a very popular tweet recently on X, or post on X, I don't know what to call that.
Joel something,
Yeah.
Joel 47.
Yeah, where he where his code base was
Under attack.
deleted.
Deleted. Okay, yeah, 4 months of work deleted because he'd never committed to the code repository, and Cursor wiped out his whole code base.
Yeah, because he had no idea that such a thing existed. Because when you are coming in without a general knowledge or overview of the concept, even AI can only help you as much. AI is brilliant in helping you if you know how to phrase the question. But if you don't know how to phrase the question, you're on your own. That's the thing about vibe coding. I think, especially what we see with Levels.io, like the airplane game and stuff like that, it's brilliant. But obviously, Levels is a fairly decent programmer himself. So, from my point of view, I do not think that with the current methods that we have at this point in time, everyone can be a programmer. But I fundamentally believe that a programmer using AI basically has superpowers. It's like that. And the third thing is where this is going within the WordPress space. A few days ago, we had the CloudFest hackathon, where a team, I forgot the name of the concept, developed like a WCLI plugin of MCPs, basically. I'm not
Yes.
sure. For the listeners, WCLI is a method of interacting with your WordPress installation through the command line. So you do not have to visit within your browser, but you have a command line, very structured, machine readable, machine writable, and stuff like that. And MCP is a protocol where you can allow large language models like ChatGPT or Claude or Grok to talk to an application. And they, on the CloudFest hackathon, spent, I think, 2 days on large language models being able to talk to WordPress. And I think that has huge upside potential. Being able to like do insta WP on steroids, where you have like a prompt, give me a WordPress page for architects in Munich, Germany. And the large language models instantly have the proper tools at hand to generate the WordPress, to give you a properly configured WordPress for the German ecosystem with like cookie banners, GDPR stuff. Good placeholder content for you because you told them who you are, and like a decent theme. And that has huge potential.
Yeah, I read about this on X as well. I think Jos de Volk was involved in creation. Like there were more authors.
The usual
Obviously,
suspects.
the usual suspects. Yeah, the the WordPress mafia or whatever. Yeah, but also for our listeners, that MCP is like, in broad terms, serves as a layer of communication between LLMs, or large language models, and all sorts of different applications, so that the LLM can consume and interact with different applications. Otherwise, you would have to write on your own code. And if you use ready-made MCP, it's like a plugin method, plugin tool, something like this. Yeah, I think this was missing, and this would mean, in my opinion, that you would be able to steer your WordPress website, like manage your WordPress website within the LLM chat window through MCP and WP CLI. So finally, the missing component, because from what I know, it's rather difficult to work with WordPress and LLMs. Like they don't talk well to each other yet.
Pretty much.
Maybe until now.
I always use like I'm a ChatGPT user on the desktop app on one screen and my WordPress on the other screen, and I'm copy pasting. I have good methods. I strongly believe that LLMs will spark the standardization of content of the web in Markdown. That is something I don't think Matt would enjoy, because Matt or Automatic or the WordPress ecosystem would have much preferred to be the block protocol to be the standard on the internet. But I think it'll be Markdown. So yeah, that's that.
But since you are copying from one screen to another, what's your idea for development? Don't you use Cursor or Copilot maybe? What do you use?
I use Copilot in VS Code, but usually for smaller tasks, rewrite that function, give me documentation for this class, whatever. I started a few weeks ago using a Python application called Git ingest, which basically summarizes your whole code base in one TXT file and copy that whole file into an LLM with a large enough context window. You need an LLM with a large enough context window like ChatGPT 03 High, I think.
Or Gemini,
Gemini,
there is like 2 million tokens context window, like crazy big.
Then you can start asking these LLMs about your code base and suggest changes. But that's the way I at least treat what the LLM gives me. It is a suggestion. It is a junior developer handing me code, because that code might not be the most secure one. It might have some flaws, different strategies than what you are using. It is pretty good. I use it often, but you have to treat it with a certain respect.
Obviously. Yeah. Trust,
Verify.
but
Trust
check.
but verify.
Trust but verify. Yeah. All right. Okay. Hendrik, this was a pleasure to have a chat with you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. This is and maybe we'll have a another round one point in time, and yeah. Thank you once again.
Sure. If you want to have me again, or if someone wants to listen again, my absolute pleasure.
If you like what you've just heard, don't forget to subscribe for more episodes. On the other hand, if you've got a question we haven't answered yet, feel free to reach out to us directly. Just go to awesomestudio.com/contact. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next episode of the Awesome to Know podcast.